Hello, dear listener. Tonight, I invite you to drift with me into a question as old as the mountains themselves, and as quiet as the ice that sleeps beneath our feet. What if the earth could remember, not only through stories we tell or books we write, but through stone, through snow, through silence? What if mountains were the ancient diaries of the planet, their peaks rising like sentences written across the sky? What if glaciers were pages of frozen time, each layer of ice a breath of centuries, holding voices of forests, oceans, and skies long gone? Together, we will wander gently into this idea. Are mountains and ice the living memory of Earth? So, find a comfortable place, let your body soften, let your breath slow, and let's begin this journey into the quiet archives of the world. And if you wish to travel further with us into mysteries like these, don't forget to subscribe to Beyond Our Dawn. Your presence helps keep this circle of wonder alive, so that together we may continue exploring the timeless whispers of our universe. If the Earth has memory, where would it keep it? Would it be written in the pages of human history, in the stories told by firelight, in the marks carved on cave walls? Or would the Earth's own memories be far older, etched into its body long before people began to wonder about the past? Tonight, in the quiet space between wakefulness and sleep, let's drift into a question both tender and immense. If the Earth remembers, does it remember through its mountains and its ice? Imagine a mountain in the stillness of night. You may see its outline against the starlit sky, a dark and silent giant. To human eyes, mountains feel eternal, unchanging, but that's an illusion born of our brief lifespans. The truth is that mountains are slow rivers of stone. They rise, tilt, and fold through forces that began deep in the earth, through plates that collided and pushed upwards. In their height and in their strata, they carry stories millions of years long. Each layer is like a sentence, each mineral vein like a phrase, and each fossil embedded in the rock a whispered memory of a vanished sea or a forest that once thrived. And then there is the ice. At first glance, it seems like the opposite of memory, fragile, melting, easily shattered. Yet ice is one of the most patient archivists the Earth has ever known. As snow falls, compresses, and transforms into glacier, it traps tiny bubbles of the air at the moment it formed. Within those bubbles are the breaths of ancient atmospheres, traces of oxygen, carbon dioxide, methane, and more. When scientists drill deep into ice cores, they read those bubbles like diary entries. What was the world like 100,000 years ago? How warm, how cool, how full of life? Ice holds the answers, waiting in silence, waiting for us to listen. So when we ask, do mountains and ice carry the memory of the Earth? We are asking more than a geological question. We are asking whether landscapes themselves can serve as witnesses. We are asking if the very material beneath our feet knows us better than we know ourselves. Think of the Himalayas. To us, they are towering, immovable. Yet to the Earth, they are young, barely teenagers, still rising higher as India presses into Asia. Within their peaks lie seashells, silent fossils of creatures that once drifted in the warm shallows of an ocean that vanished into the past. How strange it is that a climber gasping for air at 8,000 meters above sea level may be standing on the remains of coral and mollusks. That contradiction, that folding of time, is part of the Earth's way of remembering. Mountains remember through weight and through shape. They remember the violence of collisions and the patience of erosion. Rain, ice, and wind carve away what was lifted. Valleys form, rivers cut canyons, sediment drifts away to form new landscapes elsewhere. In this cycle, mountains remember not just their creation but their undoing. They are both diary and eraser, witness and participant, a paradox of persistence and impermanence, and silent, slow, pale blue in its depths, remembers differently. A glacier is not only frozen water, it is time made visible. Each layer marks a season, a year, sometimes a storm. It flows imperceptibly, downward and outward, and as it moves, it carries with it dust, pollen, ash, and air. In Greenland, in Antarctica, in the high Alps, there are ice cores that stretch back hundreds of thousands of years, longer than humanity's written memory, longer even than the lives of many species that walk today. To hold such ice is to hold the breath of a world we never knew. Imagine inhaling the same oxygen that a mammoth once breathed. Imagine hearing, faintly, the rustle of a vanished forest in the trace pollen trapped within a crystal. Imagine reading the faint imprint of a volcanic eruption that darkened skies and chilled summers. Long before human calendars existed, ice does not shout these memories. It whispers them, soft enough to be ignored, persistent enough to endure, until we are ready to listen. But what does it mean to call these things memory? After all, memory in people is made of neurons firing, connections sparking, patterns repeating. Memory can be lost, reshaped, or even invented. Earth's memory is slower, less forgiving, harder to erase. It is not a memory that can be corrected or revised. It is a record written in minerals and molecules. Perhaps it is better to call it remembrance, a way in which the earth holds on to what has happened, not for itself, but simply because matter keeps its scars. And yet, when we stand before a mountain or hold a piece of ancient ice, we feel something more than geology. We feel presence. We feel that these forms are not just materials, but keepers of meaning. Why else do we climb mountains, if not to touch something older than us, something that seems to know what we cannot? Why else do we preserve ice samples in carefully guarded vaults, if not because we understand that within them lies knowledge we desperately need to recall? As you listen, let yourself drift into the thought that memory is not confined to brains or minds. The earth, too, remembers in its own slow way. The stones and the ice are pages. The winds and the waters are ink. The valleys are punctuation, marks. The glaciers are margins where the oldest notes are stored. Perhaps memory is larger than we imagine, spanning not only neurons, but entire landscapes. And if this is true, then mountains and ice are not just scenery. They are witnesses. They are archivists. They are keepers of the most ancient tales, the kind that speak not in words, but in silence, not in sentences, but in strata, not in ink, but in ice. When you hear the crack of a glacier calving into the sea, it is not only an event, it is a page torn suddenly from a book too large to read in one sitting. When you feel the solidity of rock beneath your feet, you are standing on paragraphs of history, written in minerals and folded by time. Tonight, as your body softens and your breath deepens, think of these vast, silent witnesses. Think of mountains, breathing in their own slow rhythm, exhaling through rivers and landslides, inhaling through tectonic lift. Think of ice breathing in snowfalls and breathing out meltwater, a cycle of remembering and releasing. Together, they are the diaries of a world older than any human story. Together, they remind us that memory is not just what we carry inside, is what the earth has always carried, waiting for us to notice. And as you drift towards sleep, let yourself be carried by the thought that you, too, are part of this memory. Your breath joins the atmosphere. Your steps press into the soil. Your voice echoes against stone. One day, far in the future, the trace of your life may be folded into mountain layers or frozen into ice. Another line in the earth's unending journal. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself walking across a wide valley at dusk. The mountains rise around you, their edges softened by distance, their shadows stretching long across the ground. Each ridge and fold seems like a wrinkle on the face of an elder who has seen too many seasons to count. The air is cool, carrying with it the faint scent of stone and snow. As you walk, you feel the weight of time pressing gently against your skin, as though the valley itself is whispering that you are passing through not only space, but also history. Mountains are never as still as they appear. Beneath their quiet slopes, pressures shift and stresses accumulate. Sometimes those stresses break free in the form of earthquakes, sudden reminders that the memory of stone is not passive. It can stir, it can release, it can rewrite itself. Yet even in those moments of violence, there is continuity. An earthquake is not chaos. It is another sentence written into the earth's diary, another adjustment in a story too vast for us to follow completely. When you look at a mountain range, you are seeing memory stacked upon memory. Some of the oldest rocks on earth are found at great heights, carried upward from deep within the crust, exposed to the open sky for the first time in billions of years. These stones once lay at the bottom of oceans or far beneath forests that no longer exist. They rose slowly, carried by tectonic patience, until they became monuments to the persistence of time. To touch such rock is to touch not just stone, but the echo of an ancient earth, an earth that breathed differently, that carried different creatures, that hummed with rhythms long forgotten by the living. And then, as you lift your eyes from the rock, you may notice the glaciers clinging to high peaks, or the snowfields feeding streams that braid down the mountainsides. These glaciers, too, are storytellers. Unlike rock, they move more quickly, but still on a timescale larger than human life. They flow down valleys, grinding stone into flour, reshaping the land with every inch of movement. They also preserve, sealing inside them grains of dust from deserts half a world away, ash from ancient fires, and tiny fragments of life carried by the wind. Every flake of snow that falls on them is a line added to their memory. Over decades, centuries, millennia, these lines compact into chapters, pressed so tightly together that they may outlast entire civilizations. In that merging, there is peace. You do not need to hold everything alone. The earth is remembering with you, around you, through you. Every sigh, every step, every moment is woven into the greater story. You are part of the archive, part of the diary, part of the memory that endures. And as you sink deeper into rest, trust that this memory is gentle. It does not judge, it does not forget you, it does not let you vanish. You are carried, as surely as snow becomes ice, as surely as stone becomes mountain, as surely as rivers carry water to the sea. You are remembered always by the patient heart of the earth. There is a way in which mountains feel like elders, ancient presences that watch silently while generations come and go. They do not hurry to speak, yet they shape the lives of all who dwell around them. Farmers plant according to the rains the mountains summon. Travelers follow the passes they open. Rivers, born of their slopes and glaciers, sustain villages and cities far away. And through all of this, the mountains continue their long remembering, carrying the weight of eras as easily as they carry snow on their ridges. Ice, too, feels like an elder, though in a different way. It is less visible, less towering, but no less profound. In glaciers and ice sheets, the planet keeps its most delicate diaries. Air bubbles, grains of pollen, traces of ash. Each one is small, but together they create a story that stretches farther than our minds can hold. A glacier does not rush to reveal its pages. It allows only those who dig carefully to glimpse what lies within. And even then, the ice reminds us that these memories are fragile. A sudden melt can erase centuries in a season. A shift in temperature can change the record forever. It is a strange paradox. The oldest, deepest memories of the earth are held by things that seem impermanent. Mountains crumble, glaciers melt, and yet they endure long enough to shape continents, climates, and civilizations. Perhaps this is the secret of their remembering. They do not try to hold everything forever. They carry memory only as long as they can. Then they release it into rivers, into soil, into oceans, into us. They teach us that to remember does not mean to cling, but to share. Consider the rivers of Asia, born from Himalayan glaciers. The Ganges, the Indus, the Mekong begin in ice. When the glaciers melt, their waters flow across thousands of kilometers, nourishing lands, sustaining millions of lives. These rivers are more than water. They are memory flowing outward. They carry with them not only the snow of winters past, but also the essence of mountains themselves. Every drop is a line in the earth's story, written in motion, written in life. In the Andes, a similar story unfolds. Glaciers perched high. Above feed rivers that spread across the continent, flowing into forests, into plains, into the Amazon itself. The memory of snow becomes the memory of trees. The patience of ice becomes the vibrancy of birdsong. The story of stone becomes the story of countless lives dependent on its water. Mountains and ice are not only keepers of memory, they are givers, transforming what they hold into nourishment for all who come after. And yet, even as they give, they remind us of fragility. Glaciers retreat year by year. Rivers grow weaker when the ice disappears. The memory is not gone, but its rhythm is broken, its flow interrupted. Where once the earth whispered steadily through ice and river, now it falters, its voice uneven. We are reminded that memory is not invincible. It requires balance, respect, time. Mountains, too, show signs of strain. Forests on their slopes are cut, their soils eroded, their stability shaken. When heavy rains come, landslides sweep away what once seemed solid. These events are the Earth's reminders, moments when its memory shifts suddenly, revealing the cost of imbalance. The mountains are patient, but their patience is not endless. Their remembering includes every mark we leave, every action we take. And so, as we listen, we are invited into responsibility. The earth will remember us, whether we act with care or with neglect. Our footprints, our choices, our voices all are added to the archive. We cannot choose not to be remembered, but we can choose what kind of memory we leave. Do we add lines of healing or lines of harm? Do we write a story of balance or a story of fracture? The mountains and ice will carry it either way. This thought may seem heavy, but it is also liberating, for it means that we are never insignificant. Every small act matters. Just as each snowflake contributes to a glacier, each grain of sand to a mountain, so too does each kindness, each moment of care, each gesture of respect. We are part of the earth's memory, and in that memory even the smallest things endure. Imagine now that you are sitting beside a mountain lake. The surface is still, reflecting peaks above, sky above, clouds drifting lazily. Beneath the water, stones lie quietly, each one older than any story you know. The lake itself was carved by a glacier long gone, its basin a hollowed memory now filled with life. Fish swim where ice once pressed, trees grow where once only snow lay. The past and present coexist, each shaping the other, each adding to the whole. You breathe in, and you feel that you are part of this harmony. Your presence is recorded here, gently, as part of the lake's calm memory. The stars rise overhead, and you realize that even they are memory's light traveling across unimaginable distances, carrying with it the story of suns that may no longer burn. To look at the night sky is to look into the past, to see echoes of what once was. In this way, the sky is like the mountains and the ice, an archive of light instead of stone or snow. Memory is not bound to earth alone. It is woven into the fabric of the universe, and in this recognition comes peace. You are held not only by your own memories, but by the memories of the world, of the stars, of the cosmos itself. You are not forgotten. You are never alone. You are part of an unbroken remembering, vast and gentle, eternal and kind. So as you drift towards sleep, imagine that the earth is breathing with you. The mountains inhale with your inhale. The glaciers exhale with your exhale. The stars flicker softly, carrying memories across space. You are part of it all, a thread in the endless tapestry, a note in the quiet song. And in that song, you are remembered, now and always. There are moments when the earth feels like a storyteller, sitting by a fire, speaking in voices too deep and slow for us to easily hear. We lean closer, straining to understand, and what we catch comes in fragments: the arc of a valley, the shimmer of a glacier, the rumble of stone beneath our feet. These fragments are the syllables of the planet's story, and together they form the language of memory. Mountains speak through shape. Their ridges tell of uplift, their valleys of erosion, their cliffs of sudden collapse. Every curve is a phrase, every scar a sentence. To hike through a mountain range is to read a book whose letters are landscapes, whose punctuation is peaks. You may not grasp every detail, but you feel the meaning nonetheless. Endurance, patience, transformation. Glaciers speak through motion. They seem still, but they move steadily, flowing like rivers of time. They carve stone into new forms, leave moraines like signatures, grind boulders into powder that drifts on winds to fertilize distant lands. Their language is less visible, but no less profound. When they melt, they release their stories into rivers, sending them downstream to be read in new ways by forests, plains, and oceans. This dialogue between mountains and glaciers has been ongoing for millions of years. Each shapes the other, each remembers differently, but together they form a duet of endurance and change. The mountain lifts the glacier high into the cold where snow can fall and ice can form. The glacier, in return, carves the mountain, reshaping its face, giving it valleys and cliffs. Their memory is intertwined, inseparable, a shared story written in stone and ice. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast glacier in Alaska. Before you stretches a sea of ice, cracked and ridged, glowing faintly blue in the low sun. In the distance, mountains rise, their dark slopes contrasting with the glaciers. Brightness, you hear a faint creak, then a sudden crack, and a block of ice tumbles into the water with a thunderous splash. For a moment, You feel as though you have just witnessed a sentence being spoken aloud after centuries of silence. The glacier has turned a page, its memory shifting, its story continuing. Mountains hold similar moments of voice, when avalanches roar down their slopes, when earthquakes shake their roots, when landslides tumble into valleys. It is as though the mountain, too, has spoken suddenly. These events may frighten us, but they are not chaos. They are part of the earth's grammar, part of the way it writes its story. Even in their violence, mountains are remembering, reshaping, continuing the flow of time, and yet, most of the time, their memory is quiet. It reveals itself slowly, in layers of rock, in folds of strata, in fossils pressed into stone. To sit on a mountaintop in stillness is to feel this quiet remembering, steady as breath, patient as the stars. You realize that the mountain has held its silence for ages, and that your presence is just a moment, a brief pause in its long diary. And yet, even so, you are included. The mountain will remember you, not by name or by story, but by presence. Your footsteps, your breath, your warmth are now part of its archive. Glaciers, too, remember presence. Each snowfall that lands on them is a moment recorded. Each layer pressed beneath another is a page added to their book. And though glaciers melt, though they retreat, the memory continues in rivers, in seas, in the life those waters sustain. A glacier does not cling to its memory, releases it freely, allowing it to flow, allowing it to nourish. In this, it offers us a gentle lesson. To remember is not only to hold, but also to give. Perhaps this is why mountains and glaciers feel so healing to us. They remind us that memory is not meant to weigh us down. It is meant to connect us to places, to times, to one another. Mountains connect us to deep time, glaciers to flowing time. Together, they anchor us and carry us forward, holding us steady while also reminding us to move. Think now of the Alps in spring. Snow melts from peaks, rushing into streams that tumble down to valleys. Farmers prepare fields nourished by soils, rich with minerals from mountain stone. Children play beside rivers born of glaciers, their laughter carried on the water's surface. In every life touched by those waters, the mountains and glaciers are remembered. Their memory flows outward, entering the fabric of human life, binding us to the Earth's story. And in the far north, the Arctic reminds us of this connection to the ice holds not only the memory of climates past, but also the memory of living beings. Within frozen soils, seeds sleep, waiting for warmth to return. Within ice, bacteria and spores endure, reminders that life is patient, that it can wait. For centuries, the memory of life is written into the memory of ice, and when it awakens, it continues the story in new forms. All of this shows us that memory is never solitary. It is always shared, always connected. The mountain remembers the glacier remembers the mountain. The river remembers both, and we remember all of them in turn. Memory is not a possession, but a relationship, a web of connection stretching across time and space. As you breathe now, let yourself feel part of this web. Inhale and imagine you are drawing in the patience of mountains, their slow endurance settling within you. Exhale and imagine you are releasing like a glacier, letting go, flowing forward, nourishing the world around you. Each breath ties you to the Earth's memory, makes you part of its living story, and as sleep draws near, picture yourself walking slowly along a ridge at twilight. On one side, mountains rise, their peaks glowing in the fading sun. On the other side, a glacier stretches downward, its surface catching the light, shining softly. You walk between them, part of both, part of their dialogue, part of their memory. With each step, you are remembered. With each breath, you are included. And, as the stars appear overhead, you realize you are not walking alone. The mountains and glaciers walk with you, always, patient, steady, eternal. Sometimes when we speak of memory, we imagine it as something fragile, something that can fade, slip away, be lost forever. And in our own lives, this is true. Memories can blur, dissolve, vanish into silence. But the earth remembers differently. Its memory is not stored in a single mind, but in countless places, in stone, in water, in air, in ice. Even when one record is lost, another remains. The mountains and glaciers remind us of this resilience. They show us that memory, even when transformed, is never truly gone. Imagine the Sierra Nevada in North America. These mountains, with their granite cliffs and snowy peaks, were shaped by glaciers long ago. The ice has retreated, but its memory remains etched into the valleys, polished into the stone, traced in the shimmering lakes that fill hollows once carved by ice. Even in the absence of glaciers, the land remembers them. The story is not erased. It is rewritten, present in every curve, every reflection, every stream. In Scandinavia, too, the land bears glacial memory. The fjords of Norway deep, narrow. Inlets filled with sea were carved by glaciers that once flowed into the ocean. Today, ships glide through them. Villages nestle on their shores, and tourists marvel at their beauty. Yet all of it is the work of ice long vanished, a memory, carved into stone so deeply that it shapes lives thousands of years later. The fjords remind us that memory can endure even when its source is gone, carried forward in the forms it leaves behind. And in Canada, vast shields of ancient rock are dotted with countless lakes, formed when glaciers scraped hollows into the land. These waters now reflect the sky, shelter, fish, sustain forests, but their existence is a memory of ice. To see them is to see the glacier's hand, still guiding life long after the ice itself has disappeared. This is the paradox of Earth's memory. It is both fragile and enduring, vulnerable yet persistent. Glaciers that remain still carry their own stories. In the Alps, cores drilled from ice reveal not only climates past, but also traces of human history from ancient Roman smelting, soot from medieval fires, chemicals from modern industry. The glacier remembers us as well, recording every era, every presence, every impact. When we look into its layers, we see not only the Earth's natural rhythms, but also our own fingerprints, woven inseparably into the record. We, too, are part of the archive, whether we wish to be or not. And mountains, though vast, carry our traces as well. Carvings, roads, mines, and cities all are written into stone. Some will erode quickly, others will last for millennia. The earth is impartial. It remembers all, whether gentle or violent, creative or destructive. This impartiality may unsettle us, but it also invites us to humility, for it means that everything matters. Every action, however small, becomes part of the story. But there is hope in this, too. Just as our mistakes are recorded, so are our efforts to heal. Forests regrown on mountain slopes, rivers cleaned of pollution, glaciers studied with care, these, too, become part of the memory. The earth does not erase, harm, but it carries restoration alongside it. Its memory is not static, but balanced, always evolving, always making space for renewal. Think now of a single snowflake landing on a glacier. At first, it seems insignificant. It melts, it freezes, it disappears beneath more snow. But as years pass, it becomes part of a layer, then part of ice, then part of the glacier's slow flow. Centuries later, it may be revealed again, melting into a stream, feeding a river, nourishing life. The snowflake's memory was never lost. It only changed form, waiting to be remembered a new dot. Or think of a single rock tumbling down a mountain slope. To us, it is just a stone falling silently into a valley. But to the mountain, it is part of its story, part of its memory of erosion, of change, of transformation. That stone may become soil, may nourish a tree, may shelter an insect. Its fall becomes part of countless other stories, each one carrying the memory forward. Nothing is lost. Everything becomes part of something larger. As you breathe now, perhaps, you can feel that you, too, are part of this flow. Your moments, your actions, your presence all are recorded in ways you may not see. The earth remembers you not in detail, but in essence, woven into air and water, into soil and time. You are part of the glacier's breath, part of the mountain's silence, part of the earth's endless diary. And in this recognition, you may find peace. You do not need to cling desperately to memory. You do not need to fear being forgotten. The earth remembers, always. It remembers through mountains that rise and fall, through glaciers that advance and retreat, through rivers that flow and seas that swell. Your story is written into this larger story, carried gently, preserved in ways beyond imagining. Now imagine yourself standing in Norway, at the edge of a fjord. The water is still, reflecting. Mountains that rise steeply on either side. The air smells of salt and pine. You know that beneath the surface lies a valley carved by ice thousands of years ago. The glacier is gone, but its presence lingers, its memory shaping everything around you. You breathe in, and you feel as though you are breathing with the glacier itself, inhaling its story, exhaling your own. Or imagine yourself lying on a meadow high in the Alps. Around you, peaks rise, their ridges sharp against the sky. Beneath you, the soil is rich, nourished by stone ground, fine by glaciers long vanished. Flowers bloom, insects hum, life flourishes. All of it is possible because of ice that once covered this land. The glacier is gone, but it is not forgotten. Its memory is alive in every petal, every blade of grass, every breath of wind. And as night settles, stars emerge overhead, each one carrying its own memory across space. You realize that memory is everywhere, not only in mountains and ice, but in rivers and forests, in skies and seas, in stars and silence. The universe itself is an archive, and you are part of it, inseparable, eternal. So rest, now knowing that you are remembered, not just by your own mind, not just by those around you, but by the earth itself. You are carried in stone and snow, in air and water, in the endless remembering of the world. You are safe within it, held gently, part of a story that will never end. If you pause and listen carefully, you might begin to sense that mountains and ice are not only archives of the past, but also instruments of time itself. They measured the rhythm of the earth, not in hours or days, but in centuries, millennia, epochs. To look at a glacier is to see time flowing. To look at a mountain is to see time standing. Together, they are the pendulum of the planet's memory, swinging slowly between endurance and change. Imagine, for a moment, the Karakoram Range, where some glaciers are not retreating but advancing, pushing forward like living rivers of ice. They move slowly but with power, reshaping valleys, covering forests, carrying boulders in their frozen grip. These advancing glaciers remind us that not all memory is fading. Some is still being written, still pressing forward, still carving new pages into the Earth's book. Meanwhile, in other places, glaciers retreat rapidly, shrinking year after year. Their voices grow quieter, their presence more fragile. These contrasts remind us that memory is never uniform. It is uneven, scattered, complex. Some stories endure, others vanish quickly, but together they form the whole. To understand the Earth's memory is to accept its contradictions, to see that endurance and loss are woven together inseparably. Mountains embody this paradox as well. They rise through tectonic force, only to crumble through erosion. They endure for millions of years, yet they are never truly still. When we look at them, we see permanence, but in truth, we are simply too brief to notice their motion. A mountain is never fixed. It is always becoming, always remembering through change. Its very form is testimony to the cycles of creation and dissolution. Think now of South America, where the Andes stretch along an entire continent. Their peaks rise high, capped with snow, while deep below, volcanic fires shape new rock. The Andes carry memory both of ice and of fire, both of glaciers that carved valleys and of lava that built new land. To walk among them is to walk through a dialogue between opposites, a conversation carried on for millions of years. Their memory is not one voice, but many, layered and intertwined, all telling the story of Earth's restless creativity. And in Antarctica, where ice covers mountains so completely that only their peaks emerge, memory takes another form. There, mountains hide beneath kilometers of ice, unseen but enduring. The ice remembers in layers of snow, while the mountains remember in silence beneath. Together, they form a hidden archive, a duet of memory largely unread, waiting for discovery. To imagine this hidden world is to imagine a library vast beyond comprehension, its shelves stretching deeper than our tools can yet reach. But memory is not only hidden in grand scales, it is also present in the smallest details. In a single crystal of snow, the geometry of temperature is preserved. In a single pebble carried by a glacier, the story of a mountain slope is held. In a single drop of meltwater, sunlight, stone, and air combine into a new record. Each fragment, no matter how small, is part of the whole. Each contributes to the memory that surrounds us. And so, when you drink water from a stream, you are drinking memory. You are tasting snow that fell years before, perhaps centuries before. You are tasting stone ground by glaciers, minerals carried down valleys. When you breathe mountain air, you are inhaling the breath of forests shaped by the slopes, winds shaped by the peaks, clouds lifted by ridges. To live is to participate in memory constantly, without pause, without even realizing. This realization may shift how we see ourselves. We often think of memory as something private, internal, belonging only to us. But the earth shows us that memory is shared. It is in the air we breathe together, in the water we all drink, in the landscapes we walk upon. Our lives are not separate diaries, but chapters within the same book, each connected, each essential dot as you listen now. Allow yourself to feel part of this shared remembering. Your presence is not isolated. It is woven into valleys and glaciers, into peaks and winds. You belong to the same story, the same archive. You are remembered by mountains as surely as by friends, by glaciers as surely as by family. And in this recognition, there is comfort. You are never forgotten. You are always part of the whole. Imagine yourself now resting at the base of Mount Denali in Alaska. The peak rises above you, immense, snow-covered, glowing in the low light of evening. Around you, glaciers flow from its slopes, their surfaces cracked, ridged, alive. The air is cool, filled with the scent of pine and ice. You sit quietly, breathing. Listening, the mountain remembers. The glacier remembers. And now, they remember you too. Or picture yourself lying on the ice in Greenland, the sky stretching endlessly above. Beneath you, kilometers of frozen memory extend downward, holding centuries, holding ages. You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel the weight of that memory beneath you, steady, vast, eternal. It does not judge you. It does not measure you. It simply includes you, gently, as part of itself. The more we reflect on these landscapes, the more we realize that memory is not a burden but a gift. Mountains and glaciers do not struggle to carry what they hold. They simply are what they are: stone shaped by pressure, ice shaped by snow. Their remembering is effortless, natural, unforced. Perhaps we, too, can learn from this. We need not clutch our memories tightly, fearing their loss. We can let them flow, let them reshape us, let them be part of our becoming, as the night deepens. Let this thought settle gently in your mind. Memory is not about holding on, but about being part of the flow. The mountain does not cling to its peak. It allows it to crumble into soil. The glacier does not cling to its snow. It allows it to melt into rivers. And still, the memory remains, transformed but present, alive in new forms. So too with us. What we release does not vanish. It changes and it continues. So breathe softly now. Inhale patience. Exhale release. Inhale endurance. Exhale transformation. Feel yourself part of the mountain's rhythm, part of the glacier's flow, part of the earth's remembering. And as you drift closer to sleep, trust that you are remembered, carried gently, included always in the story of the world. There are times when mountains seem to sleep, and times when they seem to awaken. To us, they appear silent, still, eternal. But deep within, they move. Magma shifts, plates grind, pressure builds. And every so often, the mountain speaks not with words, but with eruption, with quake, with sudden landslide. These are not accidents. They are part of the mountains, remembering, part of its way of reshaping its story. Volcanoes, too, are mountains, though fiery ones. They hold memory in their layers of ash and lava, each eruption a chapter, each flow a page. Some eruptions destroy, others build, but all are preserved. Even when slopes are covered in new forests, the soil remembers the fire that once fed it. Even when lava cools into rock, it remembers the heat that once surged through it. Volcanoes remind us that memory can be both destructive and creative, both ending and beginning. Glaciers, by contrast, hold memory in gentler ways. They do not erupt suddenly, but shift slowly, almost imperceptibly. They move like breath: inhale with snowfall, exhale with melting. Their language is not fire, but water, not explosion, but persistence. They carve not in moments, but in centuries. Where volcanoes shout, glaciers whisper. Where volcanoes leave ash, glaciers leave valleys. Both are forms of remembering, both equally powerful. Consider the landscapes where these two forces meet: fire and ice side by side. In Iceland, glaciers sit atop volcanoes, and sometimes eruptions occur beneath the ice. When this happens, vast floods are unleashed, carrying with them stone, ash, and memory in motion. These events remind us that memory is not peaceful alone. It can be turbulent, messy, overwhelming, and yet, even in such chaos, the earth records. The floods carve valleys, the ash settles into layers, the glaciers reform. The memory continues, shaped by both calm and storm. Mountains also remember through rivers. Snow and glaciers feed streams that flow into valleys, joining to form rivers that sustain entire regions. The Nile remembers Ethiopian highlands. The Yangtze remembers Tibetan glaciers. The Mississippi remembers the Rockies. Every river is a thread of memory, carrying with it the essence of mountains, distributing their story across the land. To drink from a river is to taste mountains. To swim in it is to join its archive. And in the sea, where rivers end, the memory spreads further still. Sediments carried by rivers settle on the sea floor, creating layers that tell of floods, droughts, storms, civilizations. Scientists who drill into these sediments read the memory of continents, preserved grain by grain. The ocean too is a librarian, receiving the stories of mountains and ice, filing them into depths where they will wait for ages to be read again. When we reflect on this, it becomes clear that memory is not only vertical in mountains and ice, layers, but also horizontal, spread across rivers, seas, and winds. It is everywhere, moving, flowing, expanding. Mountains and glaciers may be the most visible archives, but they are part of a greater network, a web of remembering that covers the entire earth, and within this web we live our lives. Every step we take adds a thread. Every word we speak joins the pattern. Every breath we exhale becomes part of the air's memory. The earth does not separate our story from its own. It weaves them together, seamlessly, endlessly. Our joys, our mistakes, our creations, our losses all are recorded alongside the rise of mountains and the retreat of glaciers. We are not outside the archive. We are inside it, inseparable from it. This realization may soften us. It may remind us that our lives, though brief, are not meaningless. We are remembered always. The earth does not forget us. It carries us in air, in water, in soil, in stone. Even when names fade, even when stories are no longer told, the memory remains in form, in essence, in trace. Imagine now that you are lying at the edge of the ocean where a great river meets the sea. The waves lap gently, carrying the rivers, fresh water outward, mixing it with salt. You close your eyes and imagine the journey of this water from glacier to stream, from stream to river, from river to ocean. Each stage holds memory. Each stage shares memory. And now, as the waves touch your feet, that memory touches you too. You are part of it, included in its flow. Or imagine yourself high in the Andes, beside a glacier-fed lake. The water is still, clear, reflecting peaks above. You know that within this lake are sediments, layers of pollen, grains of dust, fragments of ash. They settle year after year, creating a record beneath the surface. The lake remembers, even in its silence, and as you gaze into its reflection, you realize it remembers you as well, your presence, your breath, your gaze. You are part of its story now. Mountains and glaciers remind us, again and again, that memory is not about permanence, but about participation. They do not cling to every detail. They allow things to fall, to melt, to flow, and yet nothing is wasted. Everything becomes part of something else. In this, they teach us to hold our own memories gently, to let them shape us without needing to imprison them, to let them go without fear of losing them, to trust that they will live on in new forms, in new places, in new ways. So breathe deeply now, letting the air fill you, letting it remind you of peaks and valleys, of ice and rivers, of seas and skies. Exhale slowly, letting yourself release into the flow, trusting that your breath is remembered, carried into the vast web of Earth's memory. You are not forgotten. You are part of the whole, and as sleep draws near, picture yourself resting between mountain and glacier, one at your back, one before you. The mountain is solid, steady, grounding. The glacier is fluid, flowing, carrying. Together they hold you, steady and moving, still and alive. You are balanced between endurance and change, between stone and snow, between memory and release. And in that balance, you find rest. If you listen closely, you may notice that the Earth's memory is not silent, it is always speaking, though in voices so vast and slow that we rarely hear them. Mountains speak through their shadows, glaciers through their whispers of melting, rivers through their steady song. Each sound is a syllable in the language of the planet, each gesture a phrase. Together they form a story too wide for any single life to hold, yet gentle enough to carry each of us within it. Consider the Himalayas once more. Their glaciers feed rivers that sustain nearly half of humanity. The water that flows from them is not only life-giving, is story-giving. It carries with it the memory of snowfalls long past, of storms that gathered above the peaks, of winds that swept across plateaus. When you drink from such a river, you are drinking history. The water may be clear and fresh, but within it are molecules that have journeyed through ice, through cloud, through soil, through countless cycles of the Earth's remembering dot. In the Arctic, the ice sheet preserves even subtler voices. Dust carried from deserts half a world away, ash from eruptions on distant continents, salt from ancient oceans, all of it settles into snow, pressed into ice. When we drill into that ice, we find those voices waiting, patient, intact. They tell us of climates warmer and colder, of forests that stretched where tundra now lies, of seas that rose and fell with time. The ice is a witness not only to what is near, but to what is far. It gathers the whole world into its archive, holding it gently, waiting for us to listen. Mountains gather memory differently. They collect fossils, press them into stone, hold them within ridges and cliffs. A shell in limestone tells of oceans long gone. A fern pressed into shale tells of forests long vanished. Each fossil is a word, each layer a line. Together, they create a chapter of the Earth's story, one written not for us, but available to us if we learn how to read it. To walk through a canyon layered with stone is to read millions of years at once. To stand inside a library written in rock dot. And yet, these libraries are never complete. Pages are missing, eroded away. Whole chapters lie hidden deep underground. Just as our own memories fade and return, the Earth's memory is fragmented, partial, mysterious. But in this imperfection lies beauty. We are reminded that memory does not need to be whole to be meaningful. It needs only to connect us to what has been, to show us the continuity of life. to remind us that we belong to a story larger than ourselves. Think of glaciers melting into rivers that cross deserts, feeding oases where life blooms against all odds. Think of mountains crumbling into soil that nourishes fields, feeding generations who never see the peaks that gave them life. These are not accidents. They are the Earth's way of carrying memory forward, transforming it, sharing it. Nothing is wasted. Even loss becomes gift. Even ending becomes beginning. Perhaps this is why we feel awe in such landscapes. It is not only their beauty, not only their scale, it is their remembering. We sense, even if we cannot explain, that they carry time differently than we do, that they hold stories we have forgotten but still need. We feel smaller, but also more connected. The awe is not fear, it is recognition. Recognition that we are part of their memory, and they are part of ours. Imagine yourself walking across a high plateau in the Andes. Around you, peaks rise white with snow. A glacier gleams in the distance, its surface cracked, ridged, alive. The air is thin, but it feels pure, filled with the scent of stone and sky. You pause to rest, and as you breathe, you feel that your breath joins the glaciers, that your heartbeat joins the mountains. You realize that you are not just walking across the land, you are walking inside memory itself. Or picture yourself far north, on a frozen tundra. Beneath your feet lies permafrost, frozen soil that has held its form for tens of thousands of years. Within it are roots, seeds, fragments of life preserved in stillness. As the ground thaws, some of these seeds awaken, sprouting anew after centuries of sleep. It is as if the earth whispers, nothing is truly lost. Memory can wait. Memory can return. In this way, the earth teaches us patience. It shows us that not all remembering is immediate. Some memories take times, centuries, millennia, even longer. But when they return with power, with clarity, with depth. We too might learn to hold our memories more gently, trusting that what matters will endure, even if it seems hidden for now. As you rest tonight, let yourself imagine that the earth is breathing with you. The mountains inhale with their forests, the glaciers exhale with their rivers. The stars above flicker with ancient light, each one a memory of a fire burning across vast space. You are not separate from this rhythm. You are within it, carried by it, remembered by it. And, as sleep approaches, picture yourself lying on a gentle slope, the mountain at your back, the glacier before you, the sky wide above. Around you, silence stretches, but it is not empty. It is full of voices too slow to hear, full of memories too vast to hold. You close your eyes, and you realize you do not need to understand them. It is enough to know that you are part of them. The earth remembers you, even now, even always. When we arrive at the end of this long reflection, we may ask, what does it mean for the earth to remember? We have wandered among mountains, walked across glaciers, listened to rivers, touched stone and snow, and felt their stories. We have seen that memory lives not only in minds but in matter, not only in words but in forms. Mountains and ice hold centuries and millennia in their bodies, carrying them forward, offering them freely to all who come after. To say the earth remembers is not to claim it has thoughts or feelings like ours. It is to recognize that everything leaves a trace. Every snowfall, every eruption, every breath, every step it is carried forward somehow, written into air, water, stone, soil. The mountains remember through endurance, through height, through scars that never fade. The glaciers remember through layers, through flow, through the patience of snow becoming ice. Together, they hold the planet's archive, vast and gentle, steady as breath. But their remembering is not only of the past, it also shapes the present and guides the future. Glaciers feed rivers that nourish forests and plains. Mountains lift winds that bring rains to valleys. Their memories are alive, not passive, always participating, always influencing. When we breathe, when we drink, when we live, we are sustained by their remembering. We are not apart from the archive. We are written into it with every heartbeat. This recognition can change how we see ourselves. Often, we fear being forgotten. We fear that our stories will fade, that our lives will vanish. But the earth reminds us that nothing is ever truly lost. What crumbles becomes soil. What melts becomes river. What fades becomes seed. Even when names are gone, the presence remains, transformed but enduring. We, too, are remembered by the earth, by the air, by the quiet patience of time. Think once more of Greenland's ice sheet. Beneath its surface lie bubbles of air, sealed away for hundreds of thousands of years. Those bubbles are breaths of forests and animals long gone, yet still present, still waiting. When released, they mingle with our air, joining the present, reminding us that we breathe with the past. Memory is not separate from us. It flows through us. Think once more of the Himalayas. Their glaciers feed rivers that sustain millions of lives. Each drop of water is a page in a story written high above, carried far below, joining countless others in the sea. The mountain's memory nourishes not only landscapes, but people, communities, generations. We drink there, remembering every day, whether we notice or not. Think once more of the Andes, where glaciers and volcanoes coexist, where fire and ice share the same land. Their memory is not singular, but layered lava preserving eruptions. Glaciers preserving storms, valleys preserving flows. To stand there is to feel the earth's creativity in full, remembering through opposites, carrying stories in every element. And think once more of the stars above mountains, their light traveling across unimaginable distances, across centuries, across millennia. When we look at them, we see the past alive in the present. The universe remembers too, and we are part of that remembering, part of a story not limited to Earth, but woven through cosmos. All of these reflections lead us back to the same gentle truth. Memory is not about holding, but about belonging. Mountains and glaciers do not clutch at what has passed. They let it shape them, then they release it. They remind us that to be remembered is not to be preserved unchanged, but to be included, always in the unfolding. So tonight, as you rest, let yourself feel included. You do not need to cling to every detail. You do not need to fear forgetting. You are already part of something larger, already carried, already remembered. The earth holds you in its diary of stone and snow, and that is enough. Picture yourself now lying in a valley carved by glaciers. Around you, peaks rise, their shadows long in the twilight. Before you, a river flows, carrying the memory of ice. Above you, stars shine, carrying the memory of light. Beneath you, the soil holds the memory of stone and root. You are surrounded, embraced, remembered on every side. You close your eyes, and you feel the mountain at your back, steady and grounding. You feel the glacier before you, flowing and releasing. You feel the air around you, gentle and infinite. You are part of it all, inseparable, eternal. You are remembered not as a separate story, but as part of the whole. And in this realization comes peace. You are safe. You are included. You are remembered by the mountains, by the glaciers, by the earth, by the stars. Always, gentless, endlessly. So, breathe softly now. Inhale patience. Exhale release. Inhale endurance. Exhale belonging. Let yourself drift into the slow rhythm of the planet, into the vast and tender archive of time. The mountains remember. The glaciers remember. The earth remembers. And tonight, it remembers you. What is remarkable is how mountains and ice work together as a kind of duet. The mountain lifts the ice into the cold air, where it can remain without melting. The ice, in turn, sculpts the mountain, carving cirques and valleys, softening sharp ridges into graceful arcs. The stone gives the glacier height. The glacier gives the stone shape. Their dialogue is one of patience, of slow partnership, of mutual remembering. Together, they create landscapes that are at once monuments to endurance and reminders of impermanence. Consider Greenland. Beneath its vast ice sheet lie valleys and ridges hidden from sight, carved over millions of years. Above, the ice stretches, like a white ocean frozen in mid-motion. Deep within that ice are bubbles of air that date back over 800,000 years. Those bubbles record the rise and fall of greenhouse gases, the rhythms of ice ages and warm periods, the breaths of forests that no longer stand. To melt this ice is to release those memories into the present, to let the voices of the past escape into our air. Some call it loss, others warning. But perhaps it is also a kind of remembering, though one we may not yet be ready to understand. There is a paradox here, one worth holding gently in the mind. Memory is precious because it is fragile, just as our own memories fade if we do not revisit them. The Earth's memories in ice and stone can be erased by change to rapid, by heat to intense, by forces to overwhelming. The glaciers melt, the mountains erode, the diary pages slip away in the wind, and yet, for every loss, new memories are written, new layers form, new snow falls. Perhaps the earth does not cling to the past the way we do. Perhaps it teaches us that memory is not possession but participation. To live is to become a layer in the archive, to add your breath, your step, your touch to the record of what is. You may wonder then why these forms speak so strongly to us. Why do we stand in awe before mountains? Why do we feel reverence for ice that glows blue in its depths? Perhaps because they remind us of what we long for in ourselves: endurance, stillness, clarity. Mountains endure beyond empires. Ice holds clarity that outlasts confusion. They embody what we struggle to achieve in our brief and hurried lives: the patience to remain, the strength to remember, the grace to change slowly in the stillness of the night. Imagine yourself lying on the slope of a mountain meadow, looking upward toward snowy peaks. The stars above you shine with ancient lights. The mountain beneath you rests with ancient weight. Between them, you are a fleeting moment, a heartbeat in the story, and yet you belong here. You are not separate from the memory of stone and ice. You are part of the same archive, written in a different script, but woven into the same fabric. If the earth has a memory, then perhaps you are one of its memories too. Your laughter, your footsteps, your breath, all of it will join the long story. Maybe not in ways you can see or know, but in ways that matter to the whole. A seed you plant, a word you speak, a kindness you show all of these ripple into the environment, leaving impressions as subtle as a snowflake landing on a glacier. And like that snowflake, your presence may be pressed into layers of time, preserved in echoes you cannot yet imagine. Mountains and ice remind us that memory does not need to be conscious to be real. It does not need to be deliberate to be lasting. It only needs to exist, layer upon layer, patiently, without rush. And in their quiet example, they offer us a lesson. To remember is not only to look back, but to hold space for the present. To allow today's breath, today's sound, today's silence to settle gently into the fabric of tomorrow. So as you listen now, with your body loosening and your mind slowing, picture the earth remembering itself through the patient rise of stone and the silent fall of snow. Each grain, each crystal, each fold is a sentence in the long, slow poem of the planet. And you, listening in this moment, are a listener not only of words, but of time itself. There is a silence that only mountains know, a silence so deep it seems to hum. If you have ever stood on a ridge at dawn, before the wind begins to stir, you may have felt it, a quiet that is not empty, but full, as if the stone itself is breathing beneath your feet. This silence is part of the memory of mountains. It is the sound of time slowed almost to stillness. Yet silence is never absolute. Within it, if you listen closely, there are whispers, the drip of melting snow, the distant crack of ice, the faint tumble of a rock dislodged somewhere far away. These small sounds are reminders that memory is never frozen completely. It shifts, it reshapes, it makes room for new impressions, just as a person's memory can be colored by new experiences. The mountain's memory is sculpted by wind, by rain, by the ceaseless movement of water and air. Think of water for a moment. Water is one of Earth's great storytellers. It carries with it fragments of mountains, grains of sand, bits of soil, pollen, and ash. It flows into rivers, into lakes, into seas, gathering pieces of memory as it travels. When snow falls on a mountain, it begins one of the most remarkable journeys of remembrance. Compressed into ice, it may remain for centuries, holding the moment of its birth within its frozen form. Or it may melt quickly, joining a stream that winds through valleys, carving its own narrative as it descends. Either way, the water remembers. It carries forward the mountain's story, sometimes whispering it softly, sometimes roaring it through canyons. And when that water freezes into glaciers, it becomes something more, a slow-moving archive. Glaciers carve valleys, leaving behind U-shaped scars that mark where they once flowed. They grind rock into fine powder, a memory written in dust that fertilizes distant forests and oceans when carried by the wind. Even after a glacier retreats, the land still remembers its touch. In the shape of moraines, in the scattered stones polished smooth, in the deep lakes that linger like mirrors of the sky. It is tempting to think of these landscapes as permanent, but permanence is an illusion. Memory itself is an illusion of permanence. What is truly real is the process, the act of remembering, forgetting, rewriting, reshaping. A mountain's ridge today may be a valley tomorrow. An ice sheet today may be an ocean tomorrow. The earth is always editing its own story, not erasing, not discarding, but revising, layering new chapters upon old ones. If we step back, we can see that memory is not only stored in mountains and ice, but in the very patterns they create. The Himalayas, for example, are not just high peaks but also monsoon makers, shaping the climate of an entire region. Their height, their presence, redirects winds, captures moisture, and releases rains that feed millions of lives. In this way, their memory is not silent, but active, living, embodied in weather, in harvests, in rivers that sustain civilizations, that the ice, too, remembers through influence. The great ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland press down so heavily on the Earth's crust that they alter its shape. When the ice melts, the crust slowly rebounds, a memory written in the shifting of countenance themselves. The weight of water released changes ocean currents, which in turn change climates, which in turn reshape the living world. Memory here is not passive, it is dynamic, a force that shapes what comes next. But what does this mean for us, drifting in the present moment, listening for comfort in the quiet of night? It means that we are surrounded by memory at every step, even if we do not notice. Every stone in a path is a remnant of something older. Every breeze carries molecules that have circled the globe countless times. The oxygen you breathe tonight may once have been exhaled by a forest long gone, or perhaps by a creature whose bones now rest deep within the earth. To live is to participate in memory, whether we are aware of it or not, and perhaps this is why mountains and ice resonate so deeply with the human heart. We, too, long to be remembered. We write books, carve monuments, take photographs, record songs, all in the hope that something of us will last beyond our brief span of years. Mountains and ice show us that memory does not always need words. It can be written in stone, in air, in silence. It can endure without intention, without awareness, simply by being. Imagine standing before a glacier, its face towering like a frozen cliff. At first it seems motionless, but if you wait long enough, you notice the faint creak, the sudden crack, the thunderous collapse of ice into the water below. That sound is the voice of memory releasing itself, letting go of centuries in a single moment. And yet, even as one block of ice falls away, the glacier continues, fed by new snow, flowing slowly forward, carrying its story onward. There is loss, but also continuation. There is forgetting, but also renewal. In the same way, a mountain peak may crumble, sending rocks tumbling into valleys. To us, it looks like destruction, but to the earth, it is transformation. The rocks that fall become soil. The soil nourishes plants, the plants feed animals, and the cycle goes on. Memory in this sense is not about holding on, but about changing form. The story of the mountain is not lost when its peak collapses. It is simply written differently in soil, in rivers, in life. And here, in this gentle recognition, is perhaps a lesson for us. We often fear forgetting, fear the fading of memories, the erosion of what we once knew. But mountains and ice teach us that forgetting is also part of remembering. To lose one form is to allow another to take shape. To let go is not always to vanish, but to transform into something new. As the night deepens, let these thoughts settle into you like snowfall, quiet and steady. You do not need to hold them tightly. You do not need to grasp for meaning. Simply let them drift, let them rest. The mountains and ice are remembering for you. They have been doing so long before you arrived, and they will continue long after. You are not required to carry everything alone. You are part of a larger memory, one that is patient, one that endures. So breathe gently, knowing that each breath is a thread in the fabric of Earth's story. Breathe out and imagine your breath joining the cool night air, drifting upward toward the peaks. Breathe in and imagine the air returning to you from the ice, from the glaciers, from the deep time of the planet. In this exchange, you are connected to memory older than yourself, older than your kind, older than life itself, and as you drift toward sleep, trust that you are not forgotten. You are written into the same story as mountains and ice. You are part of the same archive, eternal in its patience, infinite in its depth. Far above the tree line, where the air thins and the silence deepens, mountains begin to reveal a different kind of memory. Their summits, swept clean by winds and crowned with snow, are places where time itself feels altered. You may look down from such a height and see entire valleys laid out like pages in a book, rivers like sentences winding through them, forests like clustered words. It is here, on these heights, that the earth's memory feels most palpably clear, expansive, and enduring. To stand among such peaks is to realize how small we are, and yet how deeply connected. Every stone beneath your feet has traveled through time longer than any story you could tell. It has seen eras come and go, seas rise and fall, climates shift from warmth to cold and back again. It has waited, silently, until your step joined its record. Another footprint in the unending diary of the earth. Ice, too, waits at these heights. It clings to ridges, flows down valleys, gathers in deep bowls between summits. For centuries, even millennia, it lingers, compressing layers upon layers of snowfall into crystal. Deep within the ice, where light never penetrates, there are tiny worlds preserved. Grains of dust carried by ancient winds, fragments of plants swept from distant forests, even microscopic life caught in suspension. These fragments are not only records of what once lived, they are messages of connection, proof that everything in the world touches everything else. A desert's dust may end up sealed within polar ice. The breath of an extinct animal may be trapped in an air bubble, waiting to be released. And when we study those fragments, we begin to hear echoes of climates past. Ice cores speak of cycles of cold and warmth, of atmospheres that shifted slowly, patiently, until something new emerged. They remind us that change is not new. The earth has always changed. What is new is the speed at which change now arrives, the pace at which memories are being rewritten. Imagine the ice as a vast library. Each layer is a shelf, each bubble a book, each trapped particle a word. The deeper you go, the older the shelves become, until you are walking through corridors of time that stretch back hundreds of thousands of years. To read these shelves is to learn not only of the past, but also of possible futures. For memory is not only reflection, it is guidance. When we understand what has been, we can glimpse what may come. Yet the library is fragile. Warming air, shifting currents, rising heated, is as though fire has entered the archive. Melting shelves, erasing books, scattering words. Each glacier that vanishes is not only water lost, is knowledge lost, memory unwritten. And so there is a tenderness in listening to the ice, a sense that its whispers must be cherished before they fade. Mountains, too, remind us of impermanence. Though they seem eternal, they are worn down, grain, by weather and by time. A peak that towers today may crumble tomorrow. Entire ranges may sink into plains, given enough years. In their erosion, they are not destroyed but transformed. Their stones become soil, their soil nourishes life, their fragments find new forms. In this, mountains teach us a quiet lesson, that memory does not need to last forever to matter. Its value lies in what it gives while it exists. in how it shapes what comes after. Perhaps that is why we feel such reverence for these landscapes. They remind us of our own lives. We too are shaped by pressures unseen, by slow forces we hardly notice. We too are worn down by time, reshaped by change, and yet, in our passing, we give rise to new forms, new stories. Like mountains and ice, we are not static beings but processes, part of a continuum of memory that is larger than ourselves. Now picture a solitary glacier high in the Alps. By day it gleams in the sun, rivers of meltwater flowing from its base. By night it glows faintly under the stars, its surface cracking softly as it shifts under its own weight. Beneath it, valleys spread out, carved by its patient hand over millennia. Villages nestle in those valleys, people living lives shaped unknowingly by the glacier's memory. The fields they farm, the rivers they drink from, the soil beneath their feet, all of it has been touched by ice. Even those who never climbed the glacier are part of its story, their lives entwined with its presence. And so the question arises, are mountains and ice only memories, or are they also storytellers? Do they not speak to us in their own way, through landscapes shaped, through climates influenced, through waters carried? Their language is not one of words, but of patterns, of rhythms, of shapes repeated through time. The curve of a valley tells of ice long vanished. The tilt of strata tells of collisions deep in the past. The color of ice layers tells of storms centuries ago. If we learn to listen, the whole earth becomes a chorus of storytellers, each voice slow but steady, each memory vast but accessible. As you sink deeper into the quiet of this night, allow yourself to feel part of that chorus. You are not separate from it. The stones beneath your home, the air you breathe, the water you drink, they are all fragments of stories older than you, stories written by mountains and ice. Your heartbeat joins their rhythm, your breath joins their cycles, your presence is woven into their memory. You do not need to hold the weight of history alone. The earth is remembering with you, around you, through you, and if you let that thought carry you, it may bring a sense of peace. For, in a world that often feels hurried, uncertain, fragile, there is comfort in knowing that something endures. Not unchanged, but enduring nonetheless. The mountains stand. The ice remembers. Their patience stretches beyond fear, beyond hurry, beyond the small anxieties of a single life. They teach us that we, too, are part of something lasting, something larger than the moment, something that holds us gently even when we forget ourselves. So breathe softly now, as though you are inhaling the patience of mountains, as though you are exhaling the clarity of ice. Let each breath be a joining with memory older than time as you know it. Feel the ground beneath you as a page in the book of earth. Feel the air around you as a whisper from glaciers long past. You are part of this, inseparable from the slow remembrance of the planet. And as you drift closer to sleep, let yourself imagine walking into that great library of stone and ice. Shelves of crystal stretching endlessly, halls of rock layered with ancient words. You wander without hurry, without need for answers, simply listening, simply being. The earth's memory holds you as tenderly as you hold your own dreams. There is a peculiar tenderness in the way the earth holds its memories. Unlike people who recount their stories with voices and ink, the planet does not rush to tell us what it knows. Its memories are hidden, waiting, layered deep in rock and frozen in ice, revealed only when we learn the patience to listen. Perhaps that is why mountains and glaciers feel so mysterious to us. They do not speak in sentences, but in textures. They do not shout, but they endure. Imagine sitting at the edge of a glacier as evening settles. The air is crisp, tinged with the scent of mineral and meltwater. You hear the faint groan of ice shifting within itself, the crack that echoes across the valley, the sudden splash of a piece caving into a glacial lake. To most, these are only sounds. But if you listen with gentleness, they begin to feel like syllables of a language older than speech. The glacier is telling you about weight, about pressure, about its long journey down the mountain's flank. Each sound is a fragment of its diary, written not with pen but with movement. The mountain behind it, dark against the dimming sky, tells its story in different ways. You see the ridges, the cliffs, the valleys carved by wind and rain. You notice the patterns of strata tilted, folded, broken. These are not random marks. They are the scars of collisions, of upheavals, of seas that once lay where the peaks now stand. The mountain remembers, and in its memory we glimpse entire worlds that no longer exist. Fossils found in its rocks remind us that tropical reefs once thrived where snow now falls, that forests once flourished where glaciers now cling. It is as though the mountain whispers, "I have been many things. I have carried oceans. I have sheltered forests. I have known lives beyond counting. And what of the ice itself? Deep within its layers, beyond where light can penetrate, the ice remembers the air of long-vanished days. Tiny bubbles, so small you could overlook them, hold within them the exact breath of the world when they were trapped. If you could release one bubble, you would inhale air as it was tens of thousands of years ago. You would taste an atmosphere unshaped by industry, unaltered by human presence. That air, still pure, still ancient, would touch your lungs, and for a moment you would be breathing with mammoths and saber-toothed cats, with forests that no longer stand. To think of this is to realize that mountains and ice are not only memories, but bridges. They connect us to what has been, even as we move into what will be. They are living archives that show us we belong to a continuum larger than we imagine. They remind us that history is not something that began with human words. History began with stone, with water, with the slow patience of time recording itself in matter. Yet there is fragility here too. Ice melts faster now than it has in many centuries. Glaciers retreat, their voices falling silent, their libraries dissolving. Each year we lose more of this ancient record, as though whole chapters are being washed away. And mountains, too, change under new pressures, mining, blasting, reshaping by human hands that move more quickly than erosion ever did. These changes are part of the story now, but they carry with them a note of sorrow. For when memory is erased too quickly, we lose not only knowledge, but perspective. We lose the chance to understand who we are in the long rhythm of the earth. But memory, even when fading, is never entirely lost. Just as a forgotten song can be recalled with a single note, so too can the earth's memory be revived when we learn to look closely. A single stone, picked up from a mountain path, carries within it millions of years of story. A single drop of meltwater holds echoes of climates past. Even if great glaciers vanish, their imprint remains in the valleys they carved, in the soils they left behind, in the rivers they fed. The earth always keeps traces, always finds ways to remember, even when its handwriting changes. There is comfort in this, for it means that nothing, not even ourselves, truly disappears. We may transform, we may scatter, we may dissolve into new forms, but the record of our presence lingers. The earth remembers us, just as it remembers seas and forests, just as it remembers fire and ice. It does not remember us as individuals, perhaps, but as part of the larger pattern woven into the whole. Let yourself feel that comfort as you breathe. Imagine that your inhale carries with it molecules that once drifted above ancient seas. Imagine that your exhale may one day be caught in ice, sealed away for future beings to discover. In this way, you are not only a reader of the Earth's diary, but also a writer, leaving marks more subtle than words, but just as real. And perhaps this is what mountains and ice teach us most gently, that memory is not possession, but participation. We are not meant to cling to what was, but to add to it, to become part of the story that flows forward. The mountain does not hoard its rocks. It lets them fall, lets them become soil, lets them give life. The glacier does not cling to every snowflake. It releases water to rivers, to valleys, to the sea. In remembering, they also let go. In letting go, they also remember. So tonight, as you rest, imagine yourself lying upon the slope of a mountain meadow, hearing the faint trickle of glacial melt. Above you, stars wheel slowly across the sky, themselves memories of light that left their stars long ago. Beneath you, the earth holds you gently, carrying its memory through stone and ice. You are cradled between past and future, part of a story that is vast and ongoing. You do not need to hold it all. You only need to be, and in being, you are remembered. If you were to wander into the heart of a glacier, deep beneath its surface, you might expect silence. But what you would find instead is music. It is not the music of instruments or voices, but of drips and echoes, of shifting walls, of the distant groan of ice moving under its own immense weight. Each sound, faint though it is, carries with it a note of time passing, of memory adjusting. The glacier sings in its own slow key, and though we may not understand the words, we feel the meaning. Everything moves forward, even what appears frozen. Mountains sing too, though in lower tones. Their voices rumble through avalanches, echo in landslides, whisper in the crumble of stones beneath a traveler's boot. They sing through rivers that tumble down their sides, through the wind that bends across their ridges. Each sound is a fragment of memory breaking free, a piece of history set into motion. And when you pause in those high places, letting the noise of daily life fall away, you begin to sense that these are not just random sounds. They are parts of a chorus, one that has been ongoing for millions of years, one that holds within it the memory of all that has passed. Think of the Alps. Today they are peaks of snow and rock, rising above green valleys. But long ago, before humans had even learned to shape tools, these mountains were part of a different story. They rose from the clash of continents, from the collision of the African plate with the European, the stone that forms their highest. Peaks once lay far beneath ancient seas, pressed and folded until it rose skyward. Fossils of sea creatures still rest high among the summits, silent proof that the mountains carry within them the memory of oceans that vanished into the sky. If you place a fossil shell in your hand while standing on a snowy peak, you are holding two contradictory truths at once: that this place was once underwater, and that memory endures even when the world remakes itself. The Andes, too, remember. Stretching along the edge of South America, they hold in their folds the story of volcanism, of molten rock rising from the depths to shape new land. Their glaciers feed rivers that sustain forests and plains, and within those glaciers lie layers of snow that fell long before empires rose and fell. To walk among the Andes is to feel that the earth has written its history not in words, but in fire and in frost, in stone and in snow. And then there are the Himalayas, the tallest of them. They are young by geological standards, still rising even now, as if they are mid-sentence in the earth's unfolding story. Within their heights lie fossils of coral reefs, memories of a sea that once stretched between India and Asia. To climb their slopes is to walk through time itself, ascending from the memory of oceans into the thin air of present sky. The Himalayas remind us that memory is not always gentle. Sometimes it is jagged, thrust upward violently, impossible to ignore. Yet for all their scale, mountains are fragile too. Their glaciers retreat, their snows thin, their slopes crumble when too heavily burdened, and ice, though vast, is vulnerable to warmth. In Greenland, ancient ice sheets thin year after year, their memories dissolving into the ocean. Antarctica, too, sheds great slabs of ice into the sea, each one a chapter lost. It is easy to think of this only as loss, but perhaps it is also transition. Just as a person's memories may fade yet shape who they are, so too does the earth's memory shift, flowing from ice into ocean, from mountain into soil. The memory is not gone, it has simply taken on another form. This perspective is not meant to soften the reality of change, but to remind us that memory itself is always fluid. Our own minds shift and reshape the past constantly. Why should the earth be any different? To remember is to change, to let the present alter how the past is held. The mountains remember, but their memory is not fixed. It bends with each snowfall, each storm, each tremor. The ice remembers, but its memory drifts and melts, joining new cycles, new flows. And yet, there is resilience too. For every glacier that melts, snow still falls on the highest peaks, beginning new layers of remembrance. For every stone that crumbles, another is lifted, another ridge is formed, another mountain rises. The story continues, even as pages are turned. What we call loss is often only a shift in form, a rewriting of the same memory in new language. Imagine now that you are drifting in a dream. In this dream, you walk into a cavern of pure ice. The walls glow faintly blue, light scattering within their depths. You press your hand against the wall, and for a moment you feel the weight of centuries pressing back. You breathe, and it is as though the glacier breathes with you. You realize that you are inside a memory, surrounded by it, woven into it. You are both observer and participant, both reader and writer of the earth's long diary. When you wake from this dream, perhaps, you carry a softness with you, a recognition that you do not walk alone, that you are always surrounded by memory, even in the simplest things. The stone of a city wall, the water from a tap, the breeze through a window, it is part of the earth's remembering. Each carries stories far older than you, and so you can rest in the knowledge that you are never apart from history, never severed from the past. You are woven into it, as inseparable as snow from glacier, as inseparable as rock from mountain. As the night grows deeper, let this thought settle gently within you. You are remembered not by name or by word, but by presence. The earth does not keep memories as we do. It does not cling to the details of a single life, but it remembers through change, through connection, through the way your breath joins the air, your steps press into the ground, your body returns to soil. You are part of the slow and endless memory of the planet, and in knowing this, you can rest. There is something deeply humbling about the way the earth holds time. For us, time feels like a river rushing endlessly forward, sweeping us along too quickly, leaving us clinging to memories as though they might anchor us. But for the earth, time is not a rush. It is a tide, slow and vast, flowing back and forth, recording its presence in stone, in snow, in silence. Mountains and glaciers are the shapes this tide leaves behind, sculptures of memory that last far longer than any words we write. Close your eyes and picture a mountain ridge. In the moonlight, its outline is sharp, cutting the sky into jagged pieces. But within that ridge, within the folds of rock, are countless stories you cannot see. Some layers of stone formed when volcanoes erupted, pouring lava that cooled into solid memory. Others were laid down grain by grain in shallow seas, pressed into sandstone or limestone, whispering of creatures that once swam in waters now gone. And some rocks were bent and folded by unimaginable pressure, twisted until they became marble or schist, their very structure rewritten by time's heavy hand. The mountain holds all of this, patiently, never hurrying, never forgetting. Glaciers hold their own stories in ways more delicate but no less profound. Every snowfall that settles on their surface is a page, light and fragile, easily swept away. But when it is buried under more snow, pressed into ice, it becomes part of a deeper record. A winter storm becomes a layer. A year of drought becomes a thin line. A volcanic eruption becomes a dusting of ash, sealed forever in the crystal. If you could cut a glacier like a cake, each slice would show you centuries stacked one upon another. Each layer a fragment of weather, of climate, of life. It is memory made visible, frozen into form. And yet, neither mountains nor glaciers are simply archives. They are not just shelves where history is stored. They are active participants in the world's story, shaping life even as they record. A glacier may seem silent, but its melt feeds rivers, its rivers nourish valleys, its valleys give rise to forests and fields. A mountain may seem immovable, but it diverts winds, catches storms, creates microclimates where unique forms of life emerge. Their memories are not locked away. They are lived, expressed, carried forward into every breath of air, every sip of water, every living being that depends upon their presence. Think for a moment about rivers. Many of the greatest rivers in the world are born from mountains and glaciers. The Ganges, the Amazon's tributaries, the Yangtze all find their origins in high peaks and frozen reservoirs of snow. These rivers are carriers of memory, flowing archives that distribute the past into the present. The minerals they carry feed the soil. The waters they spread sustain people, animals, forests, and plains. And as they move, they tell the story of where they came from. The glaciers above, the snowfields, the rocky cliffs. Every river is a sentence written by mountains and ice, carrying memory across landscapes, across generations. Now consider how those rivers reach the sea. They bring with them silt and sand, fine particles worn from stone by time. These particles settle, building deltas, feeding coasts, creating fertile ground. In this way, the mountain's memory is not only preserved but shared, carried outward into new forms of life, new cycles of growth. What was once a ridge becomes soil. What was once a glacier becomes rain. What was once stone becomes nourishment. Memory transforms, but it never vanishes. When we look at the earth this way, something begins to shift in us. We begin to see that memory is not about holding on, but about letting go gracefully. Mountains crumble, glaciers melt, and yet their stories endure in new forms. In our own lives, we cling tightly to memories, fearing their loss. But perhaps we can learn from the earth that forgetting is not always the end. It is often the beginning of something else. A story retold in a new language, a past reshaped into a future. There is also a kind of compassion in this recognition. The earth remembers all things, not only beauty but also catastrophe. It remembers mass extinctions, great upheavals, long winters of ice, fiery summers of heat. And yet, through it all, life persists, adapts, re-emerges. The earth's memory is not sentimental. It does not prefer one form over another. It simply carries all of it, holds it, transforms it, and allows it to continue in new ways. As you lie in stillness, perhaps you can feel that same compassion for yourself. Your memories, too, hold joy and sorrow, triumph and failure. They are not perfect records. They shift, blur, sometimes fade. But they are yours, and in their imperfection they shape who you are. Just as mountains carry scars of collisions and glaciers hold traces of storms, you carry within you the echoes of your own past. And like the earth, you are always transforming them, reshaping them into new layers, new stories. So let yourself rest in this thought. You are not separate from the memory of the world. You are part of it, inseparable, woven into the same patterns of remembering and forgetting. Your laughter, your breath, your heartbeat are written into the same archive as stone and ice. And when you are gone, your presence will remain in some form, carried forward into new shapes, new lives, new memories. Picture yourself standing at the foot of a glacier, looking upward into its blue depths. The ice is luminous, glowing softly, as though lit from within. You place your hand on its surface and feel its coldness seep into your skin, steady, patient, grounding. You realize that you are touching not only frozen water, but also time itself, a time far older than your own. And as you breathe in, you imagine the glacier breathing with you, sharing its long, slow rhythm, inviting you to slow down, to rest, to remember that you are part of something enduring. Mountains and ice do not rush. They teach us to move slowly, to let memory unfold gently, to accept that some stories take lifetimes to tell. In their patience, we find permission to pause, to breathe, to release the urgency of our days. In their silence, we find space to listen, not only to them, but to ourselves, to the quiet places within us where memory lives. And as you sink deeper into rest, imagine that you are walking through a world made entirely of memory, mountains rising like bookshelves of stone, glaciers unfolding like scrolls of crystal, rivers speaking in flowing lines. You wander through this world without hurry, turning pages not with your hands but with your breath, reading not with your eyes but with your heart. And the earth whispers to you, gently, steadily, you are remembered. You have always been remembered. If you listen closely, you may notice that memory does not belong only to mountains and glaciers. It flows outward from them, like ripples across a pond. The valleys shaped by glaciers remember their presence, even long after the ice has retreated. The fertile soils that spread across plains remember the stone that once stood tall, ground into dust by wind and water. The lakes that fill hollows carved by ice remember the frozen rivers that once moved there. In this way, memory spreads, it radiates, it touches every part of the landscape. Consider a glacial valley at dawn. The glacier itself may be gone, melted long before, but the valley remains, U-shaped and wide, its walls polished smooth by centuries of ice grinding against stone. Rivers flow where ice once moved, carrying with them sediment, life, renewal. Forests rise where glaciers once scoured the ground bare. In every tree, in every blade of grass, the memory of ice persists, transformed into new forms of life. The glacier is gone, but its story continues. Retold through the living world it shaped, mountains tell their stories in similar ways. When they crumble, their stones scatter across the land, forming soils rich with minerals. Those soils feed plants, which in turn feed animals, which in turn sustain people. Every bite of food, every sip of water, every breath of air is touched by mountains and ice. Their memory is not distant, it is intimate. It lives within us, as surely as it lives within valleys and rivers. To eat, to drink, to breathe is to participate in the memory of the earth, and yet, there is something uniquely powerful about seeing this memory with our own eyes. To stand before a mountain is to stand before endurance. To walk on a glacier is to walk on time itself. These experiences awaken something in us, something ancient and wordless. They remind us that we, too, are temporary but meaningful layers in the Earth's story. We are not outside of it, not observers. Alone we are part of it, written into the same fabric as stone and snow. Think of the permafrost in the far north. It is soil, yes, but frozen, locked in place for thousands of years. Within it lie preserved roots, leaves, even bodies of animals that lived long before human civilization. When the permafrost thaws, it releases these memories organic matter that begins to decompose, gases that rise into the air, reminders that the past is never entirely gone. It sleeps, waiting, and when conditions change, it awakens. Sometimes gently, sometimes suddenly. The Earth's memory is not always peaceful. It can return with force, reminding us that what we do now stirs the archives of what has been. And so we arrive at a delicate truth. Memory is not neutral. The mountains and ice do not judge, but their stories reveal consequences. They show us that what we do echoes, sometimes for centuries, sometimes for millennia. The scars of mining, the thinning of glaciers, the warming of the atmosphere, these are not only present events, they are memories in the making. Layers being written into the Earth's diary. What kind of story will they tell of us? What echoes will we leave for the future to uncover? It can be sobering to think of this, yet there is also hope. Just as forests return after fire, just as glaciers form after centuries of snowfall, the Earth remembers recovery as well as loss. The soils left behind by glaciers become some of the richest farmland in the world. The valleys carved by ice become homes for countless forms of life. The Earth's memory is not static. It is resilient, adaptive, always moving toward renewal. This resilience offers us a lesson. Though we cannot stop change, we can participate in the healing. We can add to the story in ways that foster balance rather than harm. Picture, for a moment, a single snowflake drifting down onto a glacier. It is fragile, unique, gone in an instant if it were to fall on warm ground. But here, on the glacier's surface, it settles among countless others. Over years, more snow buries it, presses it, transforms it into ice, and deep below, it becomes part of the glacier's ancient body, part of its memory. That snowflakes' momentary existence becomes part of something vast and enduring, so too with us. Each act, each choice, Each breath may feel small, but when carried forward into the larger whole, it becomes memory, it becomes story. Mountains show us this too. A single rock may tumble down their slopes, seemingly insignificant. Yet, when countless rocks fall over countless years, an entire mountain is reshaped, valleys form, landscapes change. The smallest actions accumulate into great transformations. And so, the earth teaches us patience. It teaches us that even what feels small can matter when it is part of a larger pattern as night deepens around you. Allow this thought to bring you peace. You are not too small to matter. You are part of memory, part of story, part of the quiet endurance of the world. Just as mountains rise from countless grains of sand pressed together, just as glaciers form from countless flakes of snow, so too does the story of the earth include you. Your presence is not lost. It is remembered, carried forward in ways you may never see, but that are no less real. So breathe with the mountains now. Inhale slowly, feeling the cool air fill your lungs, as though it has drifted down from snowy peaks. Exhale gently, imagining your breath rising upward, joining the thin clouds around the summits. You are exchanging memory with the earth, giving and receiving, becoming part of the endless dialogue between life and stone, between ice and air. And as you drift closer to sleep, picture yourself resting in a valley once carved by glaciers. Around you, the mountains stand tall, their slopes etched with the memory of time. Above you, the stars shimmer, their light itself a kind of memory, traveling across space for thousands of years before reaching your eyes. Beneath you, the soil holds fragments of stone, fragments of ice, fragments of lives long past. You are surrounded by memory, held gently within it, as though the earth itself were cradling you. The mountains remember. The ice remembers. And tonight, they remember you too. When you think of memory, you may imagine something stored in the mind image, voices, scents that return to you when called. But the earth remembers differently. Its memories are not locked within a single brain, but distributed across landscapes, recorded in materials that shift and endure. In mountains, memory is pressed into layers of rock. In ice, memory is sealed in bubbles of air. And together, they form an archive so vast that no library could contain it. An archive that surrounds us wherever we go. Consider the glaciers of Antarctica. From far away, they appear endless, flat, almost featureless. But within them are chapters upon chapters of history. Each year's snowfall stacks upon the last, compressing slowly into ice. The deeper you go, the older the ice becomes, until you reach layers that predate humanity itself. Scientists who drill into these depths find evidence of ancient atmospheres, of times when the world was warmer or colder, of cycles of life that rose and fell long before our own. To hold a fragment of this ice in your hand is to touch air that no living creature has breathed for hundreds of thousands of years. It is to hold memory itself, tangible, fragile, fleeting dot mountains, to offer such revelations. When geologists split open rocks, they sometimes find fossils, impressions of shells, leaves, or creatures that lived long ago. These fossils are echoes of worlds we never saw, yet they endure, carved into stone as though the earth were sketching in its journal. Even without fossils, the very structure of mountains speaks. Tilted layers tell of ancient collisions. Crumpled ridges tell of immense pressure. Smooth valleys tell of glaciers that once carved their way through stone. Every shape is a sentence. Every texture a line. Mountains write their history not with ink, but with gravity and time. But memory is not always obvious. Sometimes it is subtle, hidden in details we might overlook. A small piece of quartz in a rock tells of heat and pressure deep underground. A streak of ash in an ice core tells of a volcano that erupted half a world away. A pattern of pollen, grains trapped in snow, tells of forests that once flourished, then faded. These details may seem insignificant, but together they create a tapestry of remembrance. They remind us that nothing is ever truly forgotten. It simply waits, sometimes, quietly, for us to notice. And when we do notice, when we learn to read these memories, we gain not only knowledge, but perspective. We realize that the world has seen cycles of change before. Ice ages have come and gone. Seas have risen and fallen. Life has flourished and vanished, then flourished again. The earth carries these memories calmly, without judgment, without fear. It remembers destruction and renewal as parts of the same story. And perhaps, in listening, we can learn to carry our own memories with the same grace. Yet the earth's memory is not static. It is constantly being rewritten. Glaciers melt and flow into rivers. Mountains erode and crumble into soil. Volcanoes erupt and lay down new layers of ash. Earthquakes shatter rock and rearrange entire landscapes. What was once hidden becomes exposed. What was once present becomes buried. The memory remains, but in altered form. It is like a story told again and again, each time slightly different, yet always connected to what came before. This dynamism is part of the beauty of the earth's memory. It teaches us that remembering does not mean freezing the past in place. It means carrying it forward, allowing it to change and to shape what comes next. Just as our own memories shift over time, colored by new experiences, so too does the earth's memory evolve. A glacier's retreat may reveal new valleys, new rivers, new habitats. A mountain's collapse may give rise to fertile soil where forests grow. Memory here is not a burden but a foundation, something on which the future builds. Think of Iceland, where glaciers sit alongside volcanoes, where fire and ice share the same land. Their memory is written in contrasts. Glaciers remember cold, while volcanoes remember heat. Together, they tell the story of a planet in balance, a planet where opposites shape one another. The ice preserves air from long ago, while the lava creates new land, fresh and young. Side by side, they show us that memory is not only about the past, it is also about renewal, about the constant interplay between what has been and what will be. And so, as you listen, you may feel a quiet kinship with these landscapes. Your own memories are not fixed either. They shift, they change, they reshape you. Sometimes they fade, sometimes they surprise you by returning when you least expect it. And like mountains and glaciers, you carry within you both endurance and fragility. You are strong, yet you are shaped by every moment, every experience, every breath. You are, in your own way, a living archive, remembering through your body, your thoughts, your actions. This realization can be comforting. It means you are not alone in your remembering. The earth remembers with you, alongside you, beneath you. The stone holds your footsteps. The air holds your breath. The water carries the trace of your touch. Nothing is lost. Everything becomes part of the greater memory. Even when you forget, the earth remembers. So let yourself rest in that thought. Imagine yourself walking along a mountain trail at twilight. The rocks beneath your feet crunch softly, each one older than anything you can imagine. The air around you is cool, carrying the scent of pine and snow. In the distance, a glacier gleams faintly, glowing blue in the fading light. You pause, take a deep breath, and feel as though the mountain and glacier are breathing with you, sharing their rhythm, inviting you into their patience. You are small, yes, but you are not insignificant. You are part of this vast memory, woven into it as surely as stone and ice. Your life, your moments, your dreams, they are not outside of the earth's story, they are threads within it, glistening, fragile, but real. And as you drift closer to sleep, you can rest in the knowledge that you are remembered, always, by the mountains, by the glaciers, by the earth itself. There is a quiet comfort in knowing that the ground beneath you has lived many lives before. Yours, the stone you walk on, has been shaped by oceans, lifted by tectonic force, carved by wind, polished by rivers. Long before you arrived, long before anyone you know arrived, that stone was already writing its part of the earth's diary, and long after you leave, it will continue changing shape, carrying forward memory into futures you cannot yet imagine. Mountains are not monuments built once and left untouched. They are processes, unfolding over vast spans of time. They rise when plates collide, fold when pressures build, break when earthquakes shatter them. They crumble slowly under rain and frost, releasing grains of sand that may one day form new rock. If you look closely, you will see that a mountain is not only a record of the past, it is also a blueprint for the future. Its memory is alive, not frozen, because it constantly participates in the making of tomorrow. Glaciers, too, are never still. They move like rivers, slow enough that to human eyes they seem unmoving, but relentless all the same. Over years, decades, centuries, they carve valleys, push boulders, reshape entire landscapes. In their movement they carry forward their own memory, pressing ancient snow deeper, preserving air and dust within. When they melt, they release what they have carried into rivers, into oceans, into the atmosphere. It is as if the glacier, after holding its breath for millennia, finally exhales. To stand near such a glacier is to feel that exhale. The air is cooler, sharper, tinged with the scent of water that has been hidden away for thousands of years. You may feel a chill not only on your skin but in your mind, as though the glacier were sharing with you the weight of its long remembering. And when you hear the crack of ice breaking, the thunder of a piece falling into the sea, it is like a sudden word spoken aloud after centuries of silence. But memory is not always heavy. It can also be light, carried by winds that sweep across mountains, lifted into clouds that drift far from their source. Dust from the Sahara Desert has been found in ice in Greenland, carried thousands of kilometers by invisible currents. Volcanic ash has traveled the globe, settling in glaciers and soils on distant continents. These are reminders that memory is not confined to one place. It is shared, exchanged, passed along. The earth remembers through connection, through the way every part touches every other part in this sense. Mountains and glaciers are not isolated diaries, but chapters in a single book. The Andes speak to the Amazon through rivers. The Himalayas speak to the monsoon through winds. The ice sheets speak to the oceans through melt and weight. Each remembers in its own way, but together they tell one story of Earth as a living archive, and you too are part of that story. The air you breathe tonight may contain molecules once trapped in ice, once held in a forest, once exhaled by creatures long gone. The water you drink may have been snow falling on mountains centuries ago. Even your body, your bones, your blood carry minerals born from stone. You are not separate from memory. You are memory, embodied, living, unfolding. This recognition can bring peace, for in a world where everything feels fleeting, where change arrives too quickly, there is solace in knowing that you belong to something lasting. Mountains endure, glaciers endure, and through them, you endure as well. Your moments may be brief, but they are not lost. They are layered into the earth's memory, subtle but real, eternal in their own quiet way. Think of the Himalayas once. More, climbers who reach their peaks describe a silence unlike any other, silence so deep it feels alive. It is not emptiness, but fullness, as though the mountain itself is listening. Perhaps this is what memory feels like at its purest, not the noise of words or the clutter of details, but the presence of something vast, holding all that has been without needing to speak it aloud. Glaciers offer a different kind of silence. Their depths absorb sound, soften it, transform it. To step inside an ice cave is to step into a world of hushed echoes, where your voice lingers strangely, as though the ice itself is repeating you back. It is a reminder that memory does not simply hold the past, it reshapes it, refracts it, gives it new form. In the ice, your voice becomes something other, something larger, part of the frozen chorus that has been singing quietly for millennia. As you rest now, imagine yourself walking into such an ice cave. The walls glow with soft blue light, lit by the faintest traces of daylight filtering through. Drops of water fall slowly, steadily, each one a moment leaving the past and entering the present. You place your hand on the ice and feel its coolness, its patience, its depth. You close your eyes, and in the stillness, you sense that the glacier is remembering you too, recording your touch, your presence, your breath. Mountains and ice do not choose what to remember. They remember everything. The winds that pass, the storms that rage, the creatures that cross, the footsteps of travelers, all are included. Their memory is whole, impartial, complete. And in this, perhaps, there is another lesson for us, that to live fully is to accept all that comes, not only the joy but also the sorrow, not only the triumph but also the struggle. Memory is not meant to be selective, it is meant to be true. And so, let yourself soften into this truth. You do not need to hold your memories perfectly. You do not need to preserve every detail. Like the mountains, you may allow them to erode. Like the glaciers, you may allow them to flow. What matters is not that they stay the same, but that they continue, reshaping you, nourishing you, guiding you forward. As night deepens, breathe in the patience of stone. Breathe out the clarity of ice. Feel yourself held between them, suspended in the earth's memory, safe, quiet, eternal. You are part of the archive, a line in the poem, a note in the song. And, as you drift toward sleep, you can trust that you are remembered, always, by the mountains, by the glaciers, by the earth itself. When the night is quiet and the world slows down, it becomes easier to imagine the earth as a listener, not a listener with ears or eyes, but with valleys and glaciers, with oceans and winds. In this way, the earth gathers what has passed, holding it gently, turning it into memory. And perhaps nowhere is this more visible than in the shapes of mountains and the depths of ice. They are not only landscapes, but listeners, absorbing every whisper of time. Picture, if you will, the Rocky Mountains. Their slopes stretch for thousands of kilometers, rising like waves of stone frozen in mid-motion. Within their granite schist and limestone lie stories of seas that once spread across the continent, of tectonic collisions that folded and lifted. The crust, to walk through these mountains, is to walk through layers of time stacked upon one another, each step a passage across millions of years. The mountains themselves may not speak, but their presence is a sentence, steady and unbroken, reminding us that the earth has been remembering far longer than we have been asking questions. Ice tells its stories differently. In Greenland, the ice sheet holds more than 2 million years of frozen memory. Deep cores taken from its depths reveal alternating bands of white and grey, each one a season, a year, a climate. Dust tells of deserts long ago. Pollen tells of forests that no longer stand. Ash tells of volcanic eruptions that once darkened skies. The ice is not selective. It holds everything, carrying even the smallest trace forward into the present. If you close your eyes and imagine breathing in that ancient air, you might feel as though you are inhaling the breath of the planet itself. Shared across ages, these memories are not kept in stillness alone. They are active, shaping the present. Mountains direct the course of winds, redirecting clouds, deciding where rain will fall and where deserts will stretch. Glaciers feed rivers, sustaining ecosystems far downstream, providing water for countless lives. The memory they hold is not only about what has been, but about what is still unfolding. Their past is alive in our present, woven into the air we breathe, the food we eat, the landscapes we inhabit. There is beauty in knowing that memory is not confined to minds or books. The world itself is memory, embodied, physical, enduring. Even when we forget, the earth remembers for us. The lines carved by glaciers remain long after we stop thinking of ice. The ridges of mountains endure long after we stop telling stories about them. Our forgetting is temporary. The earth's remembering is constant, and yet we must acknowledge the fragility of these memories. Glaciers are retreating in nearly every part of the world. Valleys that once echoed with the sound of ice now hold only rivers or bare rock. The libraries of snow that stored centuries of knowledge are thinning, their shelves collapsing into the sea. Each glacier lost is not only water gone, but memory gone, records erased before they could be fully read. It is as though pages are being torn from the diary of the earth, scattered into the wind. Mountains, too, face fragility, though on longer timescales. Their slopes are quarried, blasted, mined, reshaped by human hands. We leave scars in stone that were once left only by rivers and frost. These scars become part of the earth's memory as well, but they tell a story of imbalance, of speed unmatched by natural rhythms. Where mountains once eroded slowly, gently, now they collapse under sudden force. Their memory is interrupted, altered, rewritten, and so we find ourselves in a relationship with these landscapes. We are not merely observers, but participants. Our actions enter their archives. Our choices become their memories. The earth remembers not only what it has done, but what we have done, too. It carries our footsteps, our cities, our industries. It carries the echoes of our presence as faithfully as it carries the traces of ancient seas. This realization may feel heavy, but it can also feel intimate, for it means that we are not forgotten. Every act leaves a trace, every breath leaves a mark, every moment joins the great memory of the planet. And perhaps this offers us a chance to add to the story with care, to leave behind not only scars, but also signs of healing, of balance, of love. Imagine now that you are standing in a glacial valley at dusk. The glacier has retreated far up the valley, but its presence lingers in the shape of the land. The walls curve smoothly, polished by ice long gone. A river runs where the glacier once flowed, its waters sparkling with the memory of snow. The air is cool, filled with the sound of water rushing, carrying fragments of stone downstream. You close your eyes and you feel that the valley remembers. It remembers the ice, the snow, the centuries of movement. It remembers silence, and it remembers sound. And now it remembers you too. The thought may comfort you. You are part of the valley's story, part of the glacier's archive, part of the mountain's memory. Even if you never return, your presence has been recorded, not in words, but in the very fabric of the land. You belong to this remembering, and it belongs to you. And as you drift deeper into rest, you might imagine that all of Earth's memories are gathering around you like a blanket. Layers of stone, layers of snow, layers of time itself, wrapping you in their patience. You are not hurried. You are not forgotten. You are held by the memory of the planet, secure, quiet, eternal. That is a certain stillness in mountains that feels like wisdom. They do not rush, they do not argue, they do not hurry to speak. And yet, if you stay long enough, you begin to sense their language. It is a language of shape and shadow, of valleys carved and ridges lifted, of cliffs split and peaks softened. In their silence, mountains tell us that memory need not be loud to endure. Ice, too, holds this quiet wisdom. On the surface, a glacier may look blank, a flat expanse of white. But when you step closer, when the sun catches its edges, you see the hidden colors, deep blues, translucent greens, hints of silver where crystals catch the light. Within these colors lies history, compressed into beauty. The glacier is not simply frozen water, is frozen time, sculpted by gravity, pressure, and cold. To look into its depths is to glimpse a memory so long that it humbles the heart. Consider the Alps once again. Today, they stand as a playground for climbers and wanderers, their slopes dotted with villages, their peaks crowned with snow. But within their rocks lie the remnants of seas long vanished, of coral reefs uplifted skyward. Fossils found among alpine stones remind us that what is now summit was once seafloor. The Alps remember oceans, just as glaciers remember skies. Together they remind us that the earth has worn many faces, each one layered upon the last, none truly lost, and in the Arctic the ice tells its own story. Vast expanses of sea ice drift and shift, their patterns changing with seasons, their thickness recording the rhythm of climate. Beneath the ice, plankton blooms in hidden waters, feeding fish and whales. Even in this frozen place, life flourishes, and with it, memory is created. Every season leaves its trace, every cycle adds a line, until the ice itself becomes a notebook of the living ocean. When that ice melts, the memory does not vanish completely. It enters the sea, carried by currents, shared across the globe. Memory flows, as it always does, from one form to another. This is perhaps the most profound lesson mountains and glaciers offer us, that memory is not fixed. It is fluid, shifting, always in motion. We often think of memory as something static in image, a word, a moment preserved unchanged. But in truth, memory evolves. It bends under pressure, it fades, it returns in new shapes. Just as glaciers melt and reform, just as mountains crumble and rise again, memory is a process, not a possession. And when we see it this way, we begin to notice memory everywhere, in the rings of a tree, recording years of growth and drought, in the patterns of dunes, showing winds that shift ceaselessly, in the layers of lakes, where sediments settle year after year, preserving pollen and ash, insects and spores. The earth remembers not only through stone and ice, but through every element, every landscape, every cycle. Mountains and glaciers are only the most visible forms, the most enduring volumes in the great library of time. Now imagine yourself in an ice cave once more. The walls glow with a soft blue light, so gentle it feels like twilight even at midday. Drops of water fall rhythmically, echoing as though the cave itself were breathing. You reach out to touch the wall, and the ice feels smooth, cold, alive with depth. You close your eyes, and for a moment you imagine that the glacier is listening to you, recording your breath, your heartbeat, your presence. You realize you are not only observing memory, you are becoming part of it. Mountains offer a similar invitation. To climb them is not only to seek views or challenges, but to join their archive. Every step leaves a mark, however small, pressed into soil, etched into stone. Every sound you make is carried by echoes, absorbed into the air that drifts across ridges. The mountain remembers you in its way, just as you remember it. A bond is formed, quiet, unspoken, enduring. And perhaps that is the true gift of these landscapes. They show us that memory is not solitary. It is shared. The earth remembers us, and we remember the earth. The exchange is constant, ongoing, woven into every breath, every drop of water, every grain of dust. Memory is not kept in a vault. It is kept in relationship, in connection, in participation. You lie here now, listening. You may notice that your own memories are rising, drifting in and out like clouds. Some are sharp, others are hazy. Some bring warmth, others bring ache. This too is part of the process. Just as glaciers hold both snow and dust, both purity and ash, so to do we carry all of it, the bright and the heavy, the joyful and the sorrowful. And like the earth, we do not need to judge these memories. We only need to carry them, to let them shape us, to let them flow. Mountains and glaciers remind us that carrying memory is not a burden but a rhythm. They do not struggle to hold what has been, they simply are what has been. A glacier does not choose which years to remember, holds them all, layer upon layer. A mountain does not erase its scars, wears them openly, turning them into part of its form. Perhaps we, too, can learn to live this way, to let memory be part of us, without fear, without resistance, without need to control. And so, as you breathe now, imagine that you are inhaling the patience of stone and exhaling the clarity of ice. Each breath ties you more deeply to the memory of the earth. You are not separate from it. You are woven into it, inseparable, essential. The earth remembers you, and you remember the earth. As sleep draws nearer, picture yourself resting in a mountain meadow. Around you, peaks rise like ancient guardians. Above you, stars glimmer, each one carrying its own memory of light across space. Beneath you, the soil holds fragments of glaciers long gone, fossils of seas long vanished, traces of forests long forgotten. You are surrounded, enclosed, embraced by memory, and in that embrace, you are safe, you are whole, you are remembered. If you were to travel far into the high Himalayas, You would find places where the world feels suspended between sky and stone. The air thins, the horizon expands, and time itself seems to move more slowly. In such places, it is easier to imagine the mountains as archives, keeping careful record of the earth's long unfolding. Each peak, each ridge, each valley holds not only beauty but history. Layered in silence, patient and unbroken, the Himalayas, still rising today, are young in geological terms, but within them lies some of the oldest rocks on Earth. In their slopes are fossils of sea creatures, corals, shells, reminders that these towering peaks once lay beneath oceans. To stand at their base is to stand at the edge of a paradox. What is highest once lay deepest. What seems eternal was once fluid. The mountains remember both, and they show us that memory can hold contradictions without confusion. Glaciers weave their stories through these peaks, clinging to the summits, flowing into valleys, carving landscapes over millennia. They carry snow fallen from countless winters, pressed into crystalline layers that record not only cold but also warmth, not only stillness but also movement. In their depths, bubbles of air whisper of atmospheres long vanished, of forests that no longer grow, of climates that change slowly, then suddenly. When we listen to these frozen archives, we hear the voice of the earth speaking across ages, telling us of its cycles, its patience, its resilience. But glaciers also remind us of fragility. They are retreating faster now, thinning, breaking, disappearing. Where once ice stretched far into valleys, rivers now flow freely. Where once silence ruled, now rock lies bare, dark against the sun. In losing glaciers, we lose not only water, but memory records, erased before their time, whispers silenced before fully heard. It is as though pages are being torn from the Earth's diary, carried away by warmth. Mountains feel more enduring, but they, too, change. Landslides reshape their slopes, earthquakes shift their forms, erosion softens their ridges. Nothing is fixed, nothing is permanent. Yet in their change lies continuity. The stone that falls from a cliff does not vanish, becomes soil, feeding plants, sheltering animals, joining rivers. The memory remains, transformed. The earth reminds us that to change is not to be lost. It is to become something else, part of the story in a new way. Think now of the Andes, stretching across South America. Their peaks hold glaciers that feed the Amazon basin, rivers that nourish one of the richest forests on Earth. In this way, the memory of ice becomes the memory of trees, of birds, of countless lives that depend on the water flowing from high peaks. The Andes remember, through connection, their story written not only in stone, but in the living world they sustain. To touch the forest is to touch the mountains. To drink from the river is to drink from the glacier. Memory is shared, carried, across distance, woven into all life. And in the far north, in Greenland and Antarctica, the ice remembers differently. There, the archives stretch back hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps millions. These memories are so deep that we cannot read them all yet. They lie waiting, silent, beneath kilometers of ice. When we sample them, we glimpse not only the past but possible futures, for the cycles they reveal echo forward. They show us that the earth adapts, always, but also that the scale of change matters. Too quick, too violent, and the memory becomes rupture rather than rhythm. Perhaps this is what makes the memory of mountains and glaciers so important for us today. They show us both endurance and fragility, both resilience and vulnerability. They remind us that the earth has survived countless changes, but also that balance is delicate. And they invite us, gently, to consider our role in this remembering. What traces do we leave? What stories do we add? What will the earth carry forward of us? The thought may stir unease, but it can also stir tenderness. For though our actions shape the earth's memory, we are also shaped by it. To stand before a mountain is to feel small, but also connected. To walk upon a glacier is to feel fragile, but also enduring. These landscapes teach us humility, but also belonging. They remind us that we are not apart from the memory of the earth, we are within it, inseparable, essential. So let yourself imagine, as you rest, that you are lying at the edge of a glacier. The stars are bright above you, the air sharp with cold. You hear the faint groan of ice shifting, the trickle of meltwater running into the valley. Around you, mountains rise like guardians, silent and steady. Beneath you, the glacier holds centuries of memory, carrying them patiently forward. And within you, your own memories rise and fall, soft, fragile, fleeting. Together, they merge your breath with the glacier's breath, your heartbeat with the mountain's rhythm.